The fluorescent lights of the toy store buzzed overhead as Sarah Martinez stood frozen. In the Barbie aisle, her 7-year-old daughter Emma tugging gently at her worn jacket sleeve. Around them, other families filled their carts with birthday treasures, their laughter and chatter creating a symphony of normalcy that made Sarah's chest tighten with a familiar ache. She had $23 in her wallet, barely enough for groceries to last until Friday's paycheck, let alone the pink-boxed dream her daughter had circled in every catalog, pointed out in every commercial, wished for with those hopeful brown eyes that looked so much like her father's. "Mama, look! It's the one I showed you," Emma whispered, reaching toward a Barbie dream, house that cost more than Sarah made in a week at the diner. Sarah knelt down, her knees cracking slightly, and pulled her daughter close. The words caught in her throat like shards of glass. "Baby, She couldn't finish. How do you tell your child that love isn't enough to buy happiness? That working double shifts still leaves you choosing between rent and birthday presents? That being a single mother sometimes means breaking your own heart to keep theirs beating?" "I can't afford a Barbie for your birthday," Sarah whispered, the admission barely audible over the store's cheerful background music. Tears pricked her eyes, and she quickly blinked them away. Emma's small hand touched her mother's face. And in that moment, Sarah saw something that simultaneously shattered and rebuilt. Her not disappointment, but understanding far too mature for 7 years old. "It's okay, Mama. I love you more than Barbies anyway." What Sarah didn't notice was the tall man in the expensive suit standing 2 aisles over, his phone forgotten in his hand, his carefully constructed walls cracking at the sound of that whispered confession. Marcus Chen hadn't planned on being in a toy store that Tuesday afternoon. As CEO of Chen Industries, a multinational tech corporation worth billions, his schedule was typically blocked out months in advance. Board meetings, investor calls, acquisitions that would make headlines. But his assistant had reminded him that his niece's birthday was approaching, and guilt had driven him here, to this suburban store so far, removed from his corner office that it might as well have been another planet. He'd been raised by a single mother, too, in a cramped apartment, where heat was a luxury and dinner was, often creative combinations, of whatever hadn't expired. He remembered the year he'd wanted a bicycle, red with white stripes, and how his mother had worked herself to exhaustion, how he'd pretended not to notice when she'd started skipping meals so he could have seconds. He'd gotten that bicycle eventually from a church donation program. He'd never forgotten the look in his mother's eyes. Gratitude, mixed with something that looked like defeat. Marcus had spent the last 25 years building an empire, partly to ensure his mother never felt that way again, partly to prove that poverty wasn't destiny. But somewhere along the way, between the penthouses and private jets, he'd forgotten what that desperation actually felt like. Until now, until he heard Sarah's whispered heartbreak echoing across the toy aisle. He found himself walking toward them before his brain caught up with his feet. Sarah looked up to find a stranger approaching, and her first instinct was to pull Emma closer. The man was clearly out of place. His suit probably cost more than her car, and his shoes were so polished she could see the store lights reflecting in them. "Excuse me," Marcus said, his voice gentler than Sarah expected. "I couldn't help but overhear. I hope I'm not overstepping, but—" He paused, and Sarah saw something unexpected in his eyes. Not pity, but recognition. "My mother raised me alone. I remember what birthdays were like." Sarah stood instinctively defensive. "We're fine, thank you." "I'm sure you are," Marcus said quickly. "You're doing an incredible job. That much is obvious. But would you allow me to do something? Not for you, not even for your daughter, but for my mother, who never got to see someone step in when she needed it most." Sarah's throat tightened. Pride warred with practicality, with the bone-deep exhaustion of always saying no to her daughter's wishes. "I don't accept charity." "It's not charity," Marcus replied. "It's paying forward a debt I can never repay. Please, let me buy your daughter a birthday present. Whatever she wants." Emma's eyes went wide, darting between the stranger and her mother. Sarah saw the hope blooming there and felt her resolve crumbling. "I don't even know you." Marcus reached into his wallet and handed Sarah a business card. Her eyes widened as she read it. Marcus Chen, CEO, Chen Industries. She'd heard of the company. Everyone had. This was impossible. Why would you? Because I remember, Marcus said simply. I remember my mom's face when she couldn't afford what I wanted. I remember being 7 and trying to pretend it didn't matter. And I remember wishing that just once, someone would have helped her. Not with judgment or conditions, but just because it was the right thing to do. The emotion in his voice was raw, real. Sarah felt tears spilling over, no longer able to hold them back. This is too much. I can't. Yes, you can, Marcus interrupted gently. You can let someone help you. The way dozens of people should have helped my mother but didn't. You can teach your daughter that accepting kindness isn't weakness, it's being human. Sarah looked down at Emma, whose small hand was still clasped in hers. Baby, what do you think? Emma studied Marcus with the solemn intensity only children possess. Are you really a CEO? Marcus crouched down to her level. I really am. Did you work hard to get there? Every single day. And your mama? Is she proud of you? Marcus's eyes grew misty. She passed away 5 years ago. But I hope wherever she is, yes, she's proud. Emma seemed to consider this, then looked up at her mother. Mama, I think we should let him help us. Because maybe it'll make him feel closer to his mama. The wisdom of children, Sarah thought, could humble the hardest hearts. She nodded, unable to speak. What happened next would make news headlines by week's end. Though none of them knew it yet, Marcus didn't just buy Emma a Barbie. He bought her the dream house, the car, 3 dolls, and accessories that filled 2 shopping carts. But more than that, he sat with Sarah over coffee in the store's cafe while Emma played nearby, and he listened to her story. Single mother, working 3 jobs, daughter who'd never complained once about what they couldn't afford. He told her about Chen Industries' new initiative, a foundation he'd been developing to provide grants and support to single parents trying to build better lives. I want you to be our first recipient, Marcus said. Full college scholarship fund for Emma. Job training opportunities for you if you want them, and a support network of other parents walking the same path. Sarah shook her head in disbelief. This can't be real. It's real, Marcus assured her. And it's not just for you. I'm creating something that should have existed when my mother needed it. You've reminded me why I started this journey in the first place. Not for the money or the success, but to make sure families like yours, like mine was, don't have to choose between rent and birthday presents. As they left the store that day, Emma clutching her new treasures and Sarah clutching Marcus's card with trembling fingers, something profound had shifted. For Marcus, it was a reconnection to his purpose, a reminder that wealth without compassion was just numbers on a screen. For Sarah, it was hope, not just for her daughter's birthday, but for their future. The Chen Foundation would go on to help thousands of single-parent families across the country. Marcus would tell Sarah's story, with her permission, in interviews and speeches, never for publicity, but to inspire others to look around and see the struggles happening in plain sight. And Sarah would eventually complete her nursing degree through the Foundation's program, becoming an advocate for single parents in her community. But that Tuesday afternoon in the toy store, none of that mattered as much as the simple truth that had brought them together. Humanity thrives not in grand gestures alone, but in the moments when we choose to see each other's pain and respond with kindness. When we remember that we're all just people trying to make it through, and that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is both to ask for help and to offer it without judgment. Emma would treasure those Barbies for years. But what she'd treasure more was the lesson she learned that day, that the world, for all its hardships, still held people capable of extraordinary compassion. And Sarah would never forget the stranger who'd heard her whispered confession and responded not with pity, but with understanding and generosity that changed everything.